it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's a full house today. It's great to see everyone.
Yeah, it is nice to see everybody. So, Mayor Wu, I hadn't heard of Tim Walz until a couple of days ago. He's the vice presidential pick now, described as a progressive populist folk hero out in Minnesota, former football coach, he was National Guard for many years. He coined the weird dudes phrase, talking about the Republicans, J.D. Vance and the former president. So what do you think?
I am super excited. I mean, it seemed just from following the news that there were lots of great choices, lots of leaders with experience, and obviously it was going to come down to whomever the vice president had the most personal gut chemistry and alignment with, and I am very excited, I know, along with many others, about this choice, because here we have someone who, although I have not had the chance to interact with him personally, just from understanding his background, seeing how some of the social media clips of him have really caught fire across a wide swath of Democrats and people following the issues across the country. He brings the experience of having served on the executive side as a governor, really seeing how things are on the ground, having been in Congress for a significant amount of time, being a classroom teacher. I think it's the perfect combination.
By the way, this morning, our favorite satirist, Andy Borowitz's headline was, "Trump claims Walz was never white before," which I think is pretty good. We're talking to Mayor Wu. This morning, you did one of those Commute With Me things, which I love the concept. Explain what it is and explain who joined you this morning, Mayor.
So I had to cut the thing that was on my calendar right before this because the commute ended up going half an hour later than we had planned which is even more than expected. But I've been trying to really understand how the MBTA is doing and how the daily lives of our incredible residents across the city are impacted by the functioning of our transit system. So every once in a while, I will meet one of our residents wherever they're starting their day from and commute with them by the T to wherever they're ending up. So today I was with Toshuku, who is an incredibly inspirational recent BPS high school grad. He just graduated from the O'Brien. He is headed off to Yale next week and finishing up his internship at Dana-Farber, where he's in the oncology department.
Wow.
So underachiever, clearly.
Wow.
He is amazing, but he commutes in from Hyde Park to Dana-Farber every day. And so we took a bus to the Orange Line, and then there was another split-second decision when you get off the Orange Line of whether the wait time of the next bus is worth it. It was not worth it, so we hustled the last 11 or so minutes with my pregnant belly trying to run down Longwood Ave to get him to his internship. And I just am, most of all, I'm grateful to have learned more about his story, how he took advantage of all the opportunities, interning at Mass General, at Dana-Farber, at all of these, really seeking the opportunities that we try to make available in the Boston public school system. So to see a young person who has taken full advantage of that and now is opening up the whole world ahead of him, headed off to college, is really inspiring. We hit new records with the paid youth summer jobs program now. We'll be at almost 11,500 students. And so to get the story of just how this program has changed one person's life is very, very fulfilling.
Our number is 877-301-8970. When you have an experience like that, do you call Phil Lang on the phone or somebody, one of your staff people call the T and say, this is not a good morning?
So we actually will, I try to, if my phone battery allows, document the entire trip. And then we keep our internal list of all of the different things that are pointed out, whether it's a sign that wasn't working, something that needs to be fixed, a sidewalk that is just not up to conditions, and then figure out which issues are city issues versus which issues are state issues. We will end up communicating that over, and then we end up editing the video down and then posting it for everyone.
Again, the number is 877-301-8970.
Mary, as long as you mention your pregnant belly running down the street this morning, I mentioned you before we went on the air, that you're having your third kid. I said that when I had my third kid, I couldn't wait to get out of the house. Been there, done that. Okay, let's get out. Let somebody else help. And you got the father of the children. What better person to be there helping? But you've taken a little flack from some quarters. Shirley Lang, not really flack, I shouldn't say, but she questioned, is it saying to other women you don't need a maternity leave? So how do you address those issues?
I mean, by all means, I am probably the most fervent believer that every single working parent or guardian in this country should have access to paid parental leave. We are one of the now very, very few remaining countries in the entire world that doesn't provide for that as just a guaranteed way to help a new family bond. And I've been really proud of the work we've done, starting from when I was pregnant on the city council the first time, with ensuring that city workers have access to paid parental leave, with the ordinances that I authored and have revised and expanded, with the contracts that we have settled that delivered paid leave for the first time ever, if you can believe, to our teachers, police officers, et cetera. There have been little ways that we have been able to expand the opportunities and access for working parents, such as providing childcare for the first time at the police academy so that new recruits who are parents can also be able to take advantage of that opportunity. But my job is a little bit different, and I think everyone has to make their own decision. In my role, there is no such thing as delegating the job and just taking off weeks at a time. Even when I'm on vacation, technically with my family or out of the city, I am on call 24/7. And when a decision needs to be made, I make it. And certainly I will adjust how I do the job. I won't be on my feet as much. I'll probably be working from home a little bit more, but I'll be in touch with my team. And having done this 2 times before in this kind of a role, we are going to make every preparation and, of course, see how it goes and see what my doctor says and how the family's feeling.
What if you were to take a maternity leave? Who would be I don't know what acting, interim, I don't know what the proper adjective is. Who would run the city if you took a leave?
It's not defined in the city charter. Technically, anytime I am physically out of the city, it's written that the city council president steps in as acting mayor. But we've had precedents in the past where, for example, when Mayor Menino had surgery and was in the hospital for 6 weeks, he remained mayor throughout that whole time and really probably delegated more and worked with his team to be still, physically present in the city, although working in a slightly different way.
I don't want to. I'm worried I'm going to get in trouble here, so I'll be careful. Why are you not taking a maternity leave?
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that this particular job is one that is it's just not a standard. I don't have HR defined vacation time. I don't have, as many of our elected officials do. We are here to serve for the tenure that residents give us, and it is a job where you can't really define the times when you're on, the times when you're off. Everything is at the sort of will of what needs to be done and decided in the city. So I will certainly be adjusting how I do the job, and working with the team to delegate whatever can be delegated and to make sure that physically we're making adjustments and all of that. But it's not a job where I can go away for 6 weeks or 12 weeks and hope that's how everything will be okay.
Are you jealous that the legislature's on a 5-month vacation? You can't take a speaking of the legislature, we're going to get to that later, and then we'll get to your calls and questions and those questions from the floor here at the library. We've had this discussion a lot of times about the notion that a democratically elected mayor, overwhelmingly elected mayor, city council likes something, and a rep from Fitchburg can say no, and it doesn't happen. The classification plan of the property tax that you wanted didn't happen. Rent control, as we know, rent stabilization didn't happen. These liquor licenses incredibly didn't happen. The transfer fee on expensive property that both you and the governor were advocating for didn't happen. Something about the BPDA. What's your reaction to to what Beacon Hill decided to say to the people of Boston and you, Mayor Wu?
I am still very disappointed that we are in this place, but I recognize that there were many, many important issues, some of which had pretty clear consensus, that did not have the opportunity to move forward. Some of them much more widely applicable statewide to everyone, such as the Economic Development Bill. And so now the legislature, it seems, has come out alongside the governor and said they will take the extraordinary and unusual step of reconvening to get some more things done rather than just waiting until January. I truly hope that some of these provisions can also be included in that. And we will do whatever it takes to make ourselves available at the city level, to share information, to advocate, to work with the Senate in particular, because several of our items were voted through overwhelmingly on the House side and then didn't make it through that final later step as their processes flow. Again, my sense is that we were in line following a number of high priority things, and they did not make it down the list all the way. It's just, when it comes to things that matter to the city of Boston, this residential tax relief proposal, I'm not sure there's something that could be more far-reaching than the impact that this would have if it doesn't go through. Every single resident, every homeowner, every renter that will experience the impacts of taxes passed on through their leases will most likely see a very significant tax increase, and therefore the jump in their housing costs if this does not go through. And we have a proposal that would protect residents while still having businesses pay less in taxes. So there's a little bit of misinformation about how we're shifting it and therefore having a spike on businesses. That is not true. Business taxes will still go down while residential taxes are moderated. The businesses just won't be getting the massive tax break that I think some special interests are hoping for. And we also worked and really reacted to and responded to feedback that we got at the city and the state level to adjust the proposal so that at the end of the day, there's now an updated, revised compromise on the table that is much clearer about the degree, the scope, the duration of this, as well as the protection mechanisms for small businesses.
With all due respect, you used the word disappointed, and I saw that quote somewhere in the paper too. Aren't you more than disappointed? They had 19 months. Well, not everything was filed 19 months ago. They had a hell of a lot of time, not to mention the fact they didn't need the governor to say reconvene. They could have reconvened on their own. They could have voted to extend the session to accommodate what you deem to be critically important to Boston. We're outraged, and we're not the mayor of Boston.
I am holding out every hope for this extraordinary step of reconvening. If this does not happen, every single resident in the city of Boston will know that their taxes are going up because the Senate did not vote through that last step, that there was a proposal on the table that was balanced, proven to have worked because it was used in the past, very reasonable, and again, protects residents and protects small businesses in this. And so we're going to stick with it. And, we had filed this in April with the city council, had multiple public hearings, had held briefings with the legislature along the way as well. It ended up getting passed in the first week of June by the city council, then was filed up at the State House, had a hearing later that month, or maybe I can't remember if it was late June or July that the hearing took place. And so we've been working at this and trying our best to stretch out the time and make sure it wasn't a last minute crunch, but you kind of run into, I can't control what they're working on statewide and how that all fits together.
One last thing. We've talked a lot about this home rule deal that is it's the law basically right now that projects that affect Boston by itself or any other city have to go through the legislature. So is there any possibility or way of ending that, or do you talk about that with your aides? Because it's ridiculous. Why should they decide whether Boston can get a liquor license or change their taxes or anything else?
Yeah, I think the structure of lots of what we see around here, is part of the two-sided coin of what it means to be such a historic city and region. We have so much tradition, and we have so much that is a legacy built up over centuries, and then we have the leftover of prejudices that carried over into why formerly Irish-run Boston did not have the control relative to Brahmin, Protestant, Beacon Hill at the time. And that is still embedded in our system today. And it still leads to huge, real, active disparities today, where the liquor license system is one of the most significant pieces holding back our economic recovery, right? To have certain neighborhoods effectively denied the ability to have more sit-down restaurants because they're all subject to a government monopoly that it's held at an artificial scarcity level. It means that you have to have extraordinary resources just to even get in the game, versus other places where any chef or entrepreneur with an idea can get started. Sure, they have to worry about rent and all these other costs, but to have liquor license be $500,000, $600,000 just to get started, and just to trade that around the city, it has really deepened the barriers that entrepreneurs have to go through. And so there was a vote that happened I think between the Joint Conference Committee, where they agreed on the final shape of that. But I don't know all the ins and outs of State House procedure. They didn't make it through the final step. So that one, fingers crossed, has momentum, but it would be great if we didn't have to do that
and
every couple years.
They're largely in African American neighborhoods too. They're largely
Or lower income communities.
Mattapan and Roxbury and Dorchester, where people
Exactly.
can't get the businesses going.
Undemocratic and irresponsible. Mary Ann is at the mic at the Boston Public Library with a question for the mayor. Hello, Mary Ann. Welcome.
Good morning.
Hi.
Congratulations, Mayor Wu.
Thank you.
I am Mary Ann, and I work at the Museum of Fine Arts. So I want to thank you and your team for creating BPS Sundays, which will end this coming Sunday because of the pilot program. So my question to you is, first I wanted to let you know that I am very impressed with the number of families that are coming to the museum when they have other options too. But they are families, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles coming with the children. So I'm very impressed. I'm concerned now that it ends this Sunday. And my question is, what is the plan going forward, if you have a plan?
Yes. Well, thank you so much, because the MFA really was one of the leading organizations that made it possible for us to put this first ever collaboration together. I think the key to the successes that you've seen and that we've heard from families so far has been, one, having such a broad grouping of treasured institutions so that families know this is a real citywide program, and two, having the dependability that it is always these particular days. You don't have to worry about bringing a ticket or going to this place to pick up this form or that. You just show up and give them your BPS email and are able to go through. And so anyway, we are still in negotiations, I'll say, with your institution and the collective, because we know that the MFA and every cultural institution you have to keep the lights on with funding that comes from ticket prices. And so there's a little bit of a balance where we want to expand the program to as many of our young people and their families as possible, but museums are also telling us that the revenue they depend on that comes from memberships, they want to strike the right balance so that the expansion does not end up basically taking away all of the membership revenue and then leaving them in a place where they can't afford to keep operations going. So we very much are hoping to extend the current pilot as it is while we hopefully finish some of these negotiations, and then think about how we can add even more young people to the program. There might be different recognition of how a family's situation is, or the type of school that they're coming from. I hate to have any differentiation between any of our young people, but it's a very real issue about the finances of these institutions and how they really believe that it's not feasible to just sort of throw the doors open to everyone and maintain their budgets.
Mary Ann, thank you very much for the call. Do you want to
Go to Sean in West Roxbury. Thank you for calling, Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Oh, he just disappeared.
Let's do Tom in Roslindale.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, Tom, welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name's Tom. I'm calling to ask Mayor Wu, how do I stop the echo here?
We're fine on our end. I know it's difficult for you, but we hear you perfectly. So if you can bear with it, Tom, just get your question out and we'll have the mayor respond, please.
I'll do my best.
Thanks.
I'll do my best.
Thanks.
I'm calling about the Squares and Streets initiative, particularly the community planning process that the planning department has undertaken. Roslindale was the first of the 16 Squares and Streets districts. And my sense and the sense of many of my neighbors is that they're still learning, the planning department is still learning how to inform the communities. And I'm worried about several things in Roslindale, the height of buildings, particularly the displacement of residents and small businesses.
Tom, what's your question for the mayor, if you don't mind? What's your question?
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So the question is, doesn't it make sense to give Roslindale some extended time to really understand what's a huge project that most people still don't know about in the community?
It. Tom, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. Mayor Wu?
Great. Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you for participating in it and helping us sort through how both what the outcome should be for a particular neighborhood, but also how the process should run. You are absolutely right that in these first two neighborhoods, Roslindale and Hyde Park, part of the learning and part of what we've tried to say up front is that we want to make sure we are not just understanding the vision of the neighborhood, but on sort of how the built environment should shape up, but also how we can best engage with neighbors. And so we've really been using different methods and different types of outreach. We've been doing small business drop-ins and supplementing with all different kinds of tabling at neighborhood events and trying to reach people who may not be the typical meeting goers on the email lists or on the notification lists of standard city meetings. And so that's been a big priority and focus. I think here the goal is to balance being able to focus on a targeted area so that we can move more quickly than doing a whole neighborhood-wide plan, which usually takes multiple years and is basically out of date by the time it's done, with allowing everyone to have an opportunity to be in that outreach and help spread the word. So we definitely are going to need your help to continue understanding who else we need to be bringing into this. I will check in with the team because I know there was always a little bit of flexibility built in on the timelines to make sure we get this right versus just get it done. And I will follow up to see what the latest is on that front.
Tom, thank you very much. Carney Hospital, we've heard your comments saying that you will actively oppose any attempt to rezone the property away from providing health care. There's a report, my understanding until this morning was that according to Steward Healthcare, and I think it shows a little naivete on my part to just believe everything they say, there were no viable bidders for two of the hospitals, including Carney. There was a report on BUR this morning that a company that operates hospitals in Michigan, Illinois, and New Jersey made a bid for all 8 hospitals, and it was not considered viable. One, do you know about this? And what's your reaction to hearing somebody say, we did try to buy this place? Keep it open. Yeah,
I have not seen the bids myself, and I think at some point, after different processes are going to be wrapped up, there's probably more opportunity for full transparency on this. But what I understand from the state is that there were kind of what seemed like nominal bids put in. I don't know if it was just the amount written as $1 or something like that, that did not signal a serious assessment of what the financial value would be and all of that. It sounds like from reading the media coverage that it was intended to just be a foot in the door to start negotiations and kind of start from the lowest possible bargaining point. But that was not deemed to be a qualified bid because the other ones came with real numbers and real plans attached to them.
Have you given up on keeping this open? I know there's a concern the governor has and others that it not be August 31st like the judge determined, but 120 days. Beyond the 120 days, have you given up on that possibility that it stays open in some capacity?
If you look at the map of where healthcare access exists across the city, that is a key location for that whole part of Dorchester and of Boston. And when we talk to residents, they, and some of our partners have reported back to us, whether it's the doctors and nurses and healthcare workers on site or others who are part of the community board and in the community, saying that when patients are currently asked, what are you going to do if this closes? Everyone says, I'm going to be BMC. Milton has a hospital that's pretty close, but it's just, we could do some more education potentially, but right now, the feeling is that if this closes and there is no healthcare on site for the foreseeable future, some of our other local hospitals are going to be overwhelmed with just a surge in demand and need. The challenge here is that even if we find a grouping of, let's say, local community health centers or another entity who's willing to provide on-site healthcare, the lease, the real estate transactions there are so out of whack. It's more than $2 million a month just to satisfy the current leaseholder with this MPT, Medical Properties Trust.
And this was Steward's doing, to sell it and lease it back.
And to create this complicated financial structure where everyone is intertwined and probably has some more self-dealing involved in it. So I think there are separate questions. One is, how do we make sure there's healthcare access with every possible resource and tool on the table? We are already starting to work very closely on that and convening meetings with all those in the area to plan for every situation. And then it's how to break this knot of the unrealistic and wildly predatory real estate situation that exists on there. And if that landlord could be persuaded to exit or renegotiate, I think that opens up a lot more possibilities, because there are local providers, as I understand, who are interested, especially in maintaining acute care.
Someone having
on
that
site.
conversation with them, either you or the governor, or somebody having that conversation?
I believe that those conversations are one of the primary focus areas of the state and the governor.
Can we do an upbeat thing before we take a break?
Oh, yeah. Tell us about this open streets thing going.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I have swag
Hyde Park
for you
is.
both.
Oh,
That's even better. Thank you.
So these are the volunteer shirts for
great.
those who will be staffing our open streets events. We have expanded it year by year, and so this year Hyde Park is having its first ever open streets event that will happen this weekend. Okay, I'm looking to make sure I get the dates right for the other ones. I think East Boston is next. Okay.
The mayor's checking her phone for those who are not watching the
Scrolling
streaming
desperately.
here at the library. She can tell us how many days she has left in her term while she's looking at her phone.
5/12.
5/12.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
I love that.
This Sunday is the first ever Hyde Park Open Streets, 10:30 to 5. The remaining dates are East Boston on September 15th and Austin Brighton on October 20th. And so just as a reminder, the concept is that these are major thoroughfares in the community. They get closed down to vehicular traffic. You see small businesses setting up tables in the street, music, performances, kids riding bikes, everyone walking around, and it really feels like a neighborhood festival. And so we rotate them around the city so that everyone can experience each neighborhood as well.
Speaking of 512, before we do take a break, you said when you spoke to the Globe about your pregnancy that you were running for re-election. You just haven't decided when you'll formally announce. So you are running for a second term.
I plan to run. I've tried to be clear about the fact that we have a lot of work left to do, and this is just the greatest gift to be able to do this job alongside the people that I work with and the residents of the city. I think in terms of launching an official campaign, I will wait and make the announcement when the time is right.
Kim in the car, you are on with Mayor Wu. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
Great. I wanted to call on behalf of being a parent to a special needs child and the MCAS requirement that is currently up for, I think, on the ballot.
It is.
Yep.
And my question to you would be, giving the perspective that I'm a mom, I'm a teacher, and I have twins, so one just graduated. My daughter is 18 and she's a junior. She will likely not pass the MCAS, and she's been going to school year-round since she was 3. So she has autism, she has mental health issues, and epilepsy. So she's not the only one. My question is, how can we, in the Commonwealth, celebrate the diversity that MCAS does not offer to our neurodivergent students and her getting a diploma? And can you help me with the governor on this one?
Kim, thanks.
Thank you, Kim, for sharing your family story and for making sure that you are advocating not just for your own child, but for many, many families who are experiencing systems that often don't work. I know it's been a big focus within the Boston Public Schools to try to put the resources in the right places and work with our educators to overhaul how we think about serving students with disabilities and special education needs. And I hope we are making some progress there, although there's a lot of work to do. I think on this front, I hear from our teachers and school leaders all the time that there's always, for every policy that gets put in place, there are some additional consequences when you're the ones implementing them, or there are groups of students or people who aren't kind of seen directly. For high stakes testing to determine the fate of a school or a particular student can be quite harmful in a lot of ways. And at the same time, I think I hear from educators as well, you can hold that position and also believe that we need some clear standards, we need our degrees to mean something, we need consistency across the board. And so there's this, I think my understanding of some of the hesitation is that if there were a clear alternative proposed, that would be one thing, but there's a little bit of more of a gray area when the alternative proposed is to set up a task force and then wait and see what happens and try to have that work out. So I agree with you that we need a system that takes into account all of the individual needs of our young people, and that we do have to have, at the same time, we do have to have some sense of coherency and consistency across the board in what those standards are. So it's an incredibly complicated topic that we're trying to work through in Boston. We, in many places, have moved away from the MCAS as the be-all, end-all, precisely because of the issues that you're raising, but are still having to, understand that districts around districts around the Commonwealth might not have as many resources to be doing the same thing.
So you're voting no. Kim, thank you for your call. You're voting no on the question of eliminating it as a graduation requirement.
I have not yet sat down all the way and made sure to feel as deeply educated on the particular consequences of the ballot language yet. So that is something that is on my list to make sure that I do very soon. I do have some discomfort with the idea of the be-all, end-all being one particular test that, as you heard, doesn't serve everyone, but that also there's a need for making sure that there are standards in place that continue to hold all of us accountable for the delivery of education to our young people.
Could you tell us about this e-bike incentive program? And when you're telling us about it, tell us whether e-bike riders are allowed to ride in bike lanes.
Yes, e-bike riders are highly encouraged to ride in bike lanes. And again, I'm going to pull out the specific dollar amounts and all of this. The idea is that we see more and more, the data shows that more and more people are getting on bikes, leaving cars behind, and we're making it more possible for people to choose to use a bike lane when there's more safe infrastructure. I know it is stressful to see the changes to streets that everyone is very familiar with, and to understand the impacts of how we continue to need to move more people as population goes up or as jobs come here, while traffic can get more complicated with the changing patterns of delivery, food delivery, and scooters and all of this. So this is in fact a way that we can expand how many more people are able to choose to leave behind cars, because e-bikes just give you that extra power boost, and it makes it so that if you're having a particularly long commute, or if there's an uphill or series of difficult spots, you really are moving with more than just your own physical power. So yesterday we opened applications for the incentive program. This means that there will be 1,000 vouchers available, ranging from $800 to $2,400, to help reduce the costs of individuals who are purchasing an e-bike. And there will also be $150 to purchase bicycle safety equipment when you are selected for that program. You have to be 18 years old or older, and you have to fit at least one of the criteria of being income eligible, a senior over 60 years of age, or an adult with a chronic or permanent disability. And so this is really to make sure that we are incorporating inclusion in who can be part of our cycling community.
Chris in Boston. I'm sorry, Margaret.
Oh, no, go ahead. Chris in Boston.
Hi there. Chris.
Hi, how are you today?
Excellent.
Long-time listener, called many times.
You're very kind.
I do want to start by saying I love the energy you brought to the artist community. I've been a working performing artist in Boston for.
Hey, Chris, we're going to put you on hold. You have a rotten connection. Do not go away. We'll take one other question, and then we'll go right back to you and hope that you're in a better location. So please stick around, Chris, if you will. 877-301-8970.
Let's go to Brian in Brighton. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Oh, great. I've been a businessman in Boston for about 49 years, and my family is in all different neighborhoods of Boston. Instead of first looking to raise the taxes on residents of Boston, why don't they look like businessmen do to cutting programs or cutting and finding savings? I'd like to mention three off the top of my head.
Sure.
You have a full firebox program around the city. Nobody uses those fireboxes anymore. Most people don't even know where they are, and cell phones have made them antiquated. We should cut that program and reassign those electricians to other parts of the city to do work. We have surplus property in the billions of dollars. Why doesn't the city have an auction and auction off all the surplus properties? I've seen some of the properties on the tax rolls. They've been carrying them for like 40 years.
What's the third thing, Brian?
And the third thing is the local schools. Can we get together with MIT and come up with a program that they can measure the distance of all the pupils from the schools and make more local schools so the kids don't have to do busing? We're spending a fortune on the buses and on the bus parking at night, as well as the bus drivers.
We got it, Brian. Let's hear what the mayor has to say about
That's quite a
cutting
thorough
spending.
investigation, Brian. Thank you.
Hey, Brian. Mayor Wu, go.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for following the issue so closely and having clear proposals and suggestions to it. That's always I really appreciate when people are really trying to advance the conversation and getting into it too. So I want to just be clear. I think as you mentioned, and as I referenced earlier, the proposal that we have on the table at the State House, really sort of remaining before the State Senate, is not to raise taxes on businesses. Businesses will pay less in taxes even with the proposal that we have. It's just to make it so that it's more balanced between residents and the commercial property sector. And so it's a quirk of state tax law. It's not something that we have the ability to tweak as we like or really to move flexibly. State law under Prop 2.5 requires that the municipalities collect 2.5% increase year over year, which is less than inflation. And so as we manage the city budget, we really have to stay within the bounds of that 2.5% plus whatever new growth comes and other revenue sources. And every single year also, cities are required by law to have a balanced budget. And so we do not spend or plan for spending any money that we don't have. And we are not looking for this tax proposal because we wildly inflated our budget and now don't have a way to pay for it and so need to scoop it up from other places. Again, it's just a quirk of how the state law is organized, that we have a situation where if property values for residents and commercial properties go up at the same time, everything stays in balance. If they go down at the same time because of the economy, everything stays in balance. But when one goes up and one goes down, then it gets thrown out of whack because of the particular ratios that are also rigidly prescribed in law. So we're looking to tweak the ratio by a few percentage points to be able to ease and balance that transition. We are always looking to make sure that we try to save wherever possible and make the most use of taxpayer dollars. I think the Firebox program is something certainly that there's been analysis for. We have seen this raised in the past, and not that this should justify every situation, but I will say that when the 911 system suddenly went down statewide, this was something that was relied on and that we were encouraging people to reach out to. Although, again, we try to look at and make sure that there's every way with the latest technology of more efficiently providing services. And the scale of what would come from this, I think, is, every dollar counts, but it's really not the main cost driver. And so it's something that definitely we should be looking at and talking with the fire department on, although they would say that it's a matter of basic public safety. But it's a relatively minor cost item. I think the schools is a big one. And here, this is a choice about who we are as a community. We put an additional $80 million of city funding into the Boston Public Schools this year because of the extraordinary need as federal dollars were disappearing. We have this habit, sort of established pattern with how we treat public education of just yo-yoing them back and forth. When there's a big need, when the school will get flooded with resources and then it goes away, and after they've established themselves and been really successful with tutoring and other programs and social emotional supports, then that funding disappears and we're back to this kind of roller coaster. And so we've really said that the most important thing for our future is developing the workforce and developing the talent and opportunities for our young people to step into these roles. And that means being willing to invest where it's needed on the supports, on the academic curriculum expansion, on the steps that we are seeing really stabilize and improve the Boston Public Schools that are going to take some time to dig out from where we were, but that Superintendent Mary Skipper is doing a great job on. And so, again, we are already asking departments and schools to cut, to think how their positions are, to take on new programming only through finding savings in past budgets. This has been a very limited and disciplined budget. We have a AAA bond rating. We hold that very high in our priority list. We have wanted to continue to fully fund our pension and stay on schedule for that in order to maintain that discipline. But in all these areas, we have the revenue coming in before we spend anything. We make those projections, and then particularly in this case, there's been a number of 8% thrown around, which is actually quite misleading. It includes a whole chunk of shifting over the BPDA to the planning department with budget that used to be off the city books, now coming onto the city books, so it's actually not new spending at all. The change in our budget is very comparable to previous years based on increases in revenues as excise taxes and other sources of city revenues came back. Tourism taxes came back with the economy, so we feel very confident about where that revenue is going to come in from. But we just need to make sure that we are allocating that appropriately, and we'll continue to try to find places and ways to save and be efficient with our dollars.
Brian, thank you for your call. We appreciate it.
Mary, our colleague Liz Nischloss here at GBH wrote a story about people being trapped in Boston public housing elevators. She focused in on the place in the South End called the Ruth Barkley Apartments, where people are on the 5th floor, the 9th floor. One woman's in a wheelchair. She has slid down the stairs and a couple of times because the elevators don't work. The BHA says they don't have enough money, but frankly, I don't know how it's legal to put people in an apartment complex who are disabled where the elevators don't work.
By the way, she also says that 1/3 of them are either at the end of their useful life or near the end of their useful life.
Yeah.
Yep. So one item, just on the last question, I forgot to mention for Brian calling in from Brighton. I actually wrote a whole long Substack post on the interaction between the city budget, where our revenue sources come from, and the tax proposal. So if you want more details, it's wutrain.substack.com. You can find it on there. I forgot to say that. So on the elevator issue, again, this is an example of how infrastructure can be such a hidden, invisible need that gets passed over because money gets pulled to more flashy announcements or more urgent crises. And then we have buildings that are way past their functional date. And whether it's the school buildings or the MBTA tracks or some of the facilities within Boston Housing Authority, this is a real challenge and a real need. The federal government has stopped funding public housing over the last 40 plus years. And so more and more of it is needing to come from city budgets or finding ways to be creative. This particular building, the Ruth Barkley, was built in 1950. The elevators are so old now that the original manufacturer is just gone, closed. And so to even find the replacement parts, you basically have to find them on the secondary market where they're still floating around. The cost of building an entirely new modernized elevator is anywhere between $1.5 and $5 million. And there are hundreds of elevators across the system, and the capital budget that comes in from a combination of federal supports and the rent rolls and this and that there's $30 million total. So to make our way through it, we are trying to find extraordinary resources, but the priority has been fix what we can by trying to source these very, very old and now rare parts with Ruth Barkley and with all of our buildings. At least one of the elevators now has been fixed up, and so although not all of the elevators are available, these buildings do have some access, and there's been priority given to residents who need to transfer to a different building with full elevator access or with ground floor access if they have mobility challenges, and that doesn't work. So that's been incorporated into how the assignment and transfer process goes. But it's like the pools. We are just trying to dig out from decades of getting out from underneath deferred maintenance, and they're working really hard on this issue, and we are going to have to try to continue finding the dollars to do it.
Chris in Boston, we're going to hope your phone connection is good, and if it is, you got to be really brief. We're running low on time. Hi.
Sure. Okay, thanks. I've been working performance artist in Boston for the last 40 years. I'm a registered artist. I'm part of the LGBTQ community, and hard to say, but now I'm elderly. Rents are getting impossible for someone like me. And someone like me who's not better at the piano, excuse me, than I am at the internet, every application for housing you have to put in separately for each building. My question to you is there one list I can get on? Or is there someone in City Hall that can help someone like me navigate the internet?
Chris, thank you. Don't go away. We have a minute, Mayor Wu.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. There is not one list right now, and that's been a point of debate whether we enroll everyone in every list or if the different location options are so different that people should go one by one. And so it's still currently on the one by one, very frustrating. But there is someone that can help you within City Hall. So if you stay on, we will get your contact information. We have artist housing that is coming online in different places. We have senior housing that's coming online in different places. So we will keep our fingers crossed and make sure that you are aware of all of the opportunities that are available.
Chris, stay on hold. We'll get your information and give it to the mayor. Mayor, we only have a minute left. We have the head of the Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts with us in a few minutes that is not fond of your ShotSpotter program in the city at all, saying it leads to over-policing in communities of color, low-income communities, doesn't solve crime like it says it does. Tomorrow we have former Commissioner Bill Bratton, the CEO of ShotSpotter, on the show with us. Do you see any merit in the arguments that are made by the Civil Liberties Union? And I'm sorry, we're short on time.
Yeah, I think any time that there's technology used and surveillance of any kind, you have to just be aware of what biases are built into that technology, whether it's in how it's deployed or how it's been programmed itself, right? Facial recognition, which we banned, and this in particular. When I served on the council, worked alongside the ACLU and other community organizations to write and pass the ordinance that now puts parameters and protections around any surveillance technology from the city. So this year we issued the first ever report in compliance with that ordinance that documents all the data privacy parameters, who can access this, knowing where these are. And so it's a balance, but we want to put public safety first, using the best technology, while ensuring that everyone's on the same page about how to protect it.
Mayor Wu, it's great to see you. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
for having me,
your
as
time,
always.
For coming in.